A second stimulus check package deal is imminent, but do you have to do something to get the check? Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is Afternoons LALATE. Thanks for joining me. Hope your afternoon on Saturday is going wonderful. You saw the big news overnight. We detailed on Mornings LALATE at 8:30 Pacific Standard Time today. News of an alleged deal is in the works for the second stimulus package. There are new reports and allegations that the deal is close and that it will mirror the HEROES Act, that the deal is being worked out by the White House and Nancy and Chuck Schumer, as Mitch McConnell allegedly behind the scenes has been working against the president, and the president is trying to broker the deal separately and apart from Mitch. Really great news about the check. What I'm going to do now in this video this afternoon on Afternoons with LALATE is I'm going to go over what you need to do to ensure you get the check when the package is approved. It's a video that I promised I would always do as we get close to agreement of the package. Afternoons with LALATE has 4 videos. This is the first one about the check, especially if you're on SSDI, SSI, Social Security, Railroad benefits, or Veterans benefits. Next, hazard pay comes up after this. Then FPUC, and finally, rent assistance. It's a 2-hour programming block every day starting about 2:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. But let me get right to the check. I've explained to you before, and it's very important for you to understand now, what you may have to do to ensure that you actually get the check. First of all, the amount of the check. Let's go over broadly where we are with the check. $1,200 to non-dependents, single individuals. You made over less than $87,000 in 2019 returns. You would get a check. You would get a check if you're on SSDI, SSI, Social Security, Railroad benefits, and Veterans benefits. Great news. I mean, this is really great news. We're talking about one check. If you're a husband and wife or a married couple, it would be a double check, $2,400, based upon a double number of the 2019 earnings. So instead of 87, we double it. 87,000, we double it. Pretty easy. The dependents, there's no new indication overnight in the report I detailed on Mornings LALATE that the dependents will allegedly get a full stimulus check. That is where the movement allegedly is happening. $1,200 for a dependent. So let me explain to you, rather going into the whole nuance of what I already covered in Mornings LALATE, what you need to do. And this is so important. So pull out a pen and paper. I'm going to go very, very slow and make this very clear for you what you need to do to ensure that you get a stimulus check, and also to ensure you know where the stimulus check is going. Before I start that, I want to repeat that under the first stimulus package back in May, if you were an adult dependent, you're on someone else's tax return as a dependent, you were not eligible for a stimulus check. If you were not an adult dependent, that you're just a single individual or a married couple, you weren't dependents on someone else's tax return, but you didn't do something that the IRS required, and I have that something in front of me, you did not get a check. So what I'm doing is helping you, the viewers of this channel right now, to ensure that you know whether or not you have to do something. Ultimately, before I get to the details, I call this the donut guy. There's ultimately a donut guy that always jumps in the comments and says, I don't care, just wait, I'm going to tell you when I get my check, and when I get it, it'll be confirmed. No, this is for you specifically, Mr. Donut Guy. All right, the great news is that we clearly understand the thresholds to ensure that you get a check. If you are a U.S. citizen, permanent resident, resident alien, or qualifying resident alien, you have a Social Security number that's valid for employment, and you could not be claimed as a dependent for another person's tax return, and you had adjusted gross income under a certain level, you get a second stimulus check. I want to make very clear, and we don't often say this, a second stimulus check for purposes of the IRS is called an economic impact payment. So if you go to something I'm going to refer to in the next few minutes and it doesn't say stimulus check, you're like, well, it doesn't say stimulus check. What's this word economic impact payment? That's what the stimulus check is actually called. There are certain persons who had to do certain things, and that thing is called a non-filer. F-I-L-E-R. It's a form the IRS specifically required for the first stimulus check and will require for the second stimulus check for you to do if you are this type of person. And I go through this very, very slowly and break it down for you. If you're a U.S. citizen and permanent resident, and you had gross income that did not exceed $12,100 last year, individual, or $24,400 married couple, and did not file a tax return for 2018 or 2019, and were not otherwise required to federal a tax return, and were not a dependent, you have to do the non-filer. So let me get right to where we are, and I'll explain this in very, very simple layman's terms to you. First, are you a dependent on someone else's return, or are you not? And this is for your stimulus check. I'll do your child's in a second. For your stimulus check, are you a dependent on someone else's tax return? If you are, you don't have to do anything if that other person filed a tax return. We're assuming they filed a tax return because that's why you're a dependent. You're dependent on someone else's tax return, which they filed. If you're dependent on someone else's tax return and they're not filing that tax return, we're in big trouble. But we're just assuming they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So if you are an older person and you're on your son's tax return and your son filed a 2018 or 2019 tax return listing you as a dependent, you don't have to do anything. Where will your stimulus check go? It will go to your son. It won't go to you. It won't go to you even if you're on SSDI, SSI, Social Security, railroad benefits. I'm going to hold out on veterans benefits because they have an exception. But everyone else, the stimulus check would go to your son. This is very, very important. So if you are a dependent on someone else's tax return, you don't have to do anything, but the stimulus check will go to the person you are listed on their return as a dependent. Next, if you are not a dependent on someone else's tax return, but don't file tax returns because you don't have to, because you don't make enough income, and whatever other scenario in your life, you absolutely have to file a non-filer. It doesn't matter that you're on SSDI, SSI, Social Security, or railroad benefits, and the government knows where you are for purposes of that. No, I actually have the instructions from the IRS. You actually do have to file a non-filer. So repeat, if you are an individual and you do not file a tax return in 2018 or 2019 and you're not a dependent on someone else's tax return, you have to file a non-filer. Next, if you're a husband and wife and you don't file 2018 or 2019 tax returns and you're clearly not on someone else's tax return as a dependent, you are under the threshold of being required to file a tax return, you also have to file a non-filer. Very, very important. Next, if you are on benefits and you have a child, you have to especially have that child file a non-filer. Here's the example. Let's say you are on SSI and don't make $12,000 a year. You don't file tax returns, but also have a child. You have to file a non-filer for yourself, and then you have to file a non-filer for your son or for your child, because the IRS doesn't know where that child is as well. Very, very straightforward and very, very simple. The IRS is working hard to find new ways for people who don't have a filing requirement to receive their economic impact statement, said the IRS Commissioner Judd Reddick. The non-filers tool is an easy way for people that can register these payments. I appreciate the work of the Free Alliance in developing this part of an effort. So what you have to do is you have to go to the IRS's website, irs.gov, which I'll drop in the links below. And at that site, you have to enter information so that they will know where you are. First, you visit the IRS and you look for non-filers. non-filers, Filers, and it'll say enter payment here. Then you provide basic information like social security number, name, address, and dependents. That's example that the last one. You don't file tax return and you also have a child. You have to list the dependents as well. The IRS will use this information to determine it. It won't tax you. You won't get in trouble by providing this information. You will just basically tee up the ability for them to send you the stimulus check, otherwise called the economic impact check. By taking this step, you will still be able to receive the benefits of the your dependent child. Anyone who has already filed a 2018 or 2019 tax return, you don't need to do this because they know where you are. Anyone who's a dependent on someone else's tax return, you don't need to do this because they already know who you are. I'm repeating from the IRS's website. And this is true across the board. Now, here is really super interesting, and this is why you stay with me, because I go to this incredible detail for you. No one does this for you. Veterans have something totally different. Remember how I said in the lead-in early in the video? Veterans have something totally different. Veterans, listen up. Ignore everything I just said for everyone else. You have a unique situation. Veterans Affairs recipients, VA recipients who receive VA benefits on a regular basis, receive stimulus payment, or aka economic impact payments, without having to do anything. You don't have to do anything. This was part of an agreement with the IRS and the VA back in April 17th of this year, that the IRS brokered a deal specifically with the VA that that veterans would not have to do anything, and that you would automatically receive your economic payments. No further action is needed. Timing on the payments is still being determined. Since many of the VA recipients typically aren't required to file tax returns, the IRS has worked with other government agencies to do this quicker. Additional work remains, and then this was an April statement, but this simply simplifies the process. For veterans with dependents, an extra step may be needed. Now, that sounds a little confusing. So I'm talking about veterans, your check specifically. Now, if you're a veteran and you have a child who's a dependent on your tax return, you apparently have to do the non-filer for that child. Really, really very clear. Now, if you've done a non-filer before, and I have a lot of viewers who ask this question, you don't have to do it again. Next, if there's sort of confusion about the wrong, and I've had this in the comments, that someone is the wrong dependent on the wrong person's return, or it's been changed, or someone else got custody of the child. Ultimately, there's nothing wrong with doing a non-filer. It's just do it to ensure they know where you are. I get all the most hilarious comments about non-filer. They're like, IRS knows where I am when they want to send me a bill, but when they want to send me a check, they don't know where I am. Yeah, I mean, this is basically the system we're dealing with. I don't run it. I'm just reporting for it. Ultimately, I'm trying to protect you not to be the donut guy. Don't be the donut guy. Don't sit back and say, it's not confirmed until I get a check, and I'm not going to do anything. So I'll tell you when I get my check. Well, donut guy, you may not get the check, because if you did not file 2018 or 2019 tax returns and you're not listed as dependent on someone else's tax return, guess what? You're eligible for a check, and it's not coming to you because you didn't do something. Bring me more donuts. I'm not going to do anything. Well, you're not going to get the check. It's very, very simple. And this non-filer filing is very, very, very simple. Last, when are you going to get the check? I saw some crazy... I gotta laugh. I saw some crazy comments on Mornings LALATE today where people said, you said we're getting the check on Monday. Am I getting the check on Tuesday? Am I getting the check today? No, and no. I never said you're getting the check today. And no, you're not getting the check tomorrow either. The way I've always said, I initially said late August. That's initially what I said, by electronic delivery, and paper checks early September. Steve Mnuchin and a lot of people involved with Treasury are claiming they can get it to you in mid-August, which would be even earlier. This is based upon a timeline that the second stimulus package, which the check is in, is passed next week. So if the stimulus, and if you're watching this video, no, 3 weeks from now, we don't have a package approved, don't hate the messenger. I'm just reporting the news. But if the package is approved this coming week, the check by funds would land in your account middle August if you have the electronic set up, and if you're by paper, then late August. Ultimately, don't wait on the non-filer filer. Get it on file right today. Do it, because once they have it, you are lined up. There's ultimately a backlog of time with everything, and as I warned you yesterday, I warned you this morning. Sunday morning is going to be a hot mess express on ABC and CBS and Fox and Meet the Press and Face the Nation, all those wonderful shows which most of us don't watch. But the talking heads, the Republicans and the Democrats, are going to all be appearing on those shows and saying, there's no stimulus package, and I'm blaming the other person for not giving us a stimulus package. I don't want you to believe them. I want you to sit back and turn on something else like golf or Major League Baseball or Formula One racing or something, because they're going to do that. They're absolutely going to do that, and they're going to do it on Monday, and they're going to appear in the Capitol and they say there's no bill. The president is going to blame Chuck and Nancy and Chuck are going to blame the president. Ultimately, what allegedly is going on behind the scenes is that the stimulus package as written by the HEROES Act is allegedly online to get ratified by secret, quiet negotiations behind the scenes between Mark Meadows, Steve Mnuchin, Nancy, and Chuck. The president allegedly does not like the HEROES Act. If you did not catch the morning's video, I'll give you a brief summation of really what's going on. The HEROES Act was introduced on Monday by Mitch McConnell to the Senate. It was not introduced by the president. He's not a member of Congress, so he can't introduce it. He did not introduce the bill. Mitch McConnell introduced it. It unanimously, quickly got no approval from both Republicans in the Congress, Republicans in states, and Republican constituents. Things like $200 a week were not got no support from key swing states across the country. The president saw that, but before that, he had already understood that he wanted eviction moratoriums. He had already understood that he wanted a stimulus check more generous than $1,200. He had already understood and had said that he wanted these things given. But when the stimulus package was introduced by Mitch, it wasn't in there. And ultimately, we had said the president had written the bill. No, he had not written the bill. Mitch had introduced the bill after a week of completely admitted feuds with Steve Mnuchin. They admitted there was a feud. And the bill was introduced, and right off the bat, it did not get support. So the president is really staying consistent with his message, at least over the last 3 weeks, which is he wants to give you a check. He wants to give you a generous check. He wants to give you rent eviction moratorium. He does not want you homeless. He wants to extend FPUC benefits, which he said 2 days ago and last night as well, at $600 a week. He wants to give this to you, but he just doesn't want to deal with Mitch. I mean, do you blame him? Ultimately, no one wants to deal with Mitch, and allegedly overnight there's been reports that Mitch McConnell has been talking his butt off behind the president, throwing the president under the bus, and basically telling Senate Republicans not to support the president and distance themselves for the purposes of the fall elections, and the president's not happy. Would you be? Big, exciting, great news. So do the non-filer filing. I'm here to help you. I'm here to inform you. I'm here to keep you motivated, inspired, and focused. Coming up next, hazard pay on afternoons, LA Late. Then FPUC and ending with rent assistance. Tonight at about 7:30 Pacific Standard Time, our 1-hour programming block of evenings, LA Late, starting with your questions about the stimulus check. I'll go more over what's going on with this dramatics soap opera behind the scenes. And finally, EIDL loans, which was a big watch video last night. Stay focused, stay motivated, stay inspired, and have a great afternoon.